Welcome to DevOps Accents, a podcast on everything around DevOps, public cloud, and cloud-native topics, with your hosts, Pablo, Leo, and Kirill.
Hello and welcome to another episode of DevOps Accent, a podcast where we, the co-founders of mkdev, get together to discuss all things around DevOps, cloud-native technologies, data, and artificial intelligence. And today we have invited a dear friend of us, a person with whom we've been working for a longer period and just a very good person, Sergiu Petean. Hi, Sergio.
Hello, guys. Happy to see you.
Hello, Sergio.
Hi, Kirill. Hi, Pablo. How are you guys? How you've been?
It's good, let's see what happened today with Sergio.
Yeah, but for those who don't know, like Sergio is a kind of public figure, but for those who don't know, Sergio brings here his over 20 years of experience in technology and innovation, having contributing significantly across various domains. His expertise ranges from developing quality software and architectural solutions to leading digital transformation efforts and building successful teams. Notably, Sergio served as a technical advisory board member of Cloud Native Computing Foundation and co-founder of Open IoT Vienna, promoting open source solutions. He is an experienced entrepreneur, has launched multiple businesses and shared his knowledge through keynote speeches on various industry topics. This is where you probably knew him. So, hi, Sergio. Welcome to DevOps Accents. We're glad to have you here and to share your insight with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm actually surprised to hear that I did so many things. I should become more humble probably in my bio now. So, yeah, it's like I'm old. I'm not. Actually, I'm still lots of things to do. So.
Yeah, let's learn a little bit more about you. The traditional question that I ask our guests is, because our podcast called DevOps Accents, we have various accents, and what is your accent?
My accent, it's probably I'm specialized in digital transformation, following, let's say, a bottom-up approach where I'm very much interested in how DevOps can impact the whole organization. That's inevitable in cloud, because digital transformations nowadays have to be cloud transformation. And once you do a cloud transformation, then you have to deliver and build and operate software in a very efficient way. And I believe there's no other methodology or philosophy currently in place than DevOps. Except maybe, if you hear the news that there is a new philosophy in town, which is platform engineering. But from my point of view, platform engineering, it's nothing else but DevOps done right.
Okay, that's an interesting point of view. Because we encountered a number of people who don't even understand what platform engineering is and when it all started. I'm not a very clever person, but I thought that this is more like a software. And it took me some time to grasp the idea, and I presume a lot of people are at the same page where I am. For those who are like me, let's give a brief overview of what platform engineering is.
You want me to give it a shot? And you guys can fill in?
You are an expert?
I'm the expert. All right. Good to know. So you're not wrong about platform engineering being code. Because one big part of efficient DevOps is doing GitOps, for example, and then basically everything you do, it's being treated as a code. And every single DevOps team or every single DevOps engineer should be concerned about building the coding skills that one has, because it's going to help with a lot of things, right? Including, and maybe this is one aspect that I'm very much interested in, is the overall quality. Nowadays, whether you release a dashboard like Grafana or you release an infrastructure, you're going to write code. And that code has to prove that it has the right quality. So then you have to start thinking about testing your code And that can become quite tricky in a cloud environment. But to keep it simple, I do believe platform engineering it's the next phase in how DevOps is currently being evolving. In the past we had a conversation: is SRE, so site reliability engineering, is it different than DevOps? And some voices were saying yes, DevOps it's a philosophy, while SRE is something practical. The same with platform engineering. Basically, the difference is that after a long period of, let's say, experimentation, where you had a multitude of tools and standards and languages and different ways to approach different releases now, and maybe different tool stacks around observability, and why not even different incident management processes in place. Basically, what you realize is that the whole organization can benefit from it, which means that suddenly you don't have, let's say, 300 developers that you have to sustain with a small team of 10 people, but suddenly you're going to have to sustain the whole organization, whether it is business, it's security, it's compliance, and so on. So in order to do that without scaling your team, which anyhow it's impossible because you will not have, let's say, the budget or the time to bring all the talent that you need to scale with the same rhythm that the company scales. And basically all this pressure is forcing you to become way more effective than you were before, which means that you have to basically decide on which tooling you are going to sustain and build and harden. And then you're going to define some standards around what kind of languages can be used. You're going to define standards about what observability means, what it means to handle metrics and all the other signals like logging, profiles, and tracing. And once you do that, you figure out that, yes, I'm doing platform engineering. Because you're not simply concerned about the tooling itself, you're much more concerned about the experience of your stakeholders.
But then, Sergio, for example, when time ago, we were talking about the DevOps people and they were working, imagine, with Terraform or with tooling like Ansible, and they're going doing the people. Okay, all of us were doing infra as a code. So it was platform engineer before or it wasn't? My question is, what is the difference between what was happening, imagine, 8 years ago? It's the same thing with SRE that you were telling, because SRE, if I remember, is 2000, 2003, something like that. Is when Google created this document, this white page, when they were explaining what it was an SRE and how was this person or this profile in the organization and how it was so important for Google to be what it is today. And it's true that there are many people fighting. It is DevOps or it's not. So what is the difference these days between this old DevOps guy that in 5 years, 10 years ago was doing Terraform or Ansible and the platform engineer today?
They are the same people. They evolved together with the stack and with the needs coming from an organization. And as I said, nowadays, every single stakeholder has a need around DevOps. So I would say the same engineers basically right now evolved in being much more, not biased, but I would say they will prefer much more a certain way of working. Now they would prefer a certain software release process in place. They would prefer a certain incident management that ideally would not be struggling them. Now you don't want to have, let's say, just 5 people doing on calls 24/7. You want to have responsibility around the whole organization. One big change, one motto that normally I still hear it a lot is like, you build it, you run it. That would be somehow a philosophy around DevOps that engineers at least were expecting from this. But I would say that's changing into you build it, you run it, but with our support.
And I think that what you said before, observability, I think is a very key here, because now that even observability is as a code is when everything was changing, no?
Yes, everything is as a code. Like you have security teams that write open policies, as a code. And then you have a software engineer that it's writing its own Grafana dashboard and it's coding its own metrics, why not? And then it's writing its own SLO for the team. And then you have a product owner that actually is very much aware of the qualities of your code. And then they're going to be the one maybe enforcing the SLOs on the team on different params, different qualities. And then not to mention business now, because the business has to grow it themselves into embracing more the technology. There's no way around it, which means that whenever you're going to sign a contract and you're going to have SLAs, you're not going to sign an SLA that is going to be checked once a year, because your client expects to have a live dashboard with all the SLAs that will always be part of the conversation whenever there is any misunderstanding or friction. So you have business looking for to code their own SLOs and SLAs either into a contract, and then of course that contract needs to reflect the reality in a dashboard.
There are many differences between what it was before and what it is today, because I remember that before the maximum that thing that you were able to do, it was a pipeline, let's say, I'm talking 8 years ago, and you are not considering anything as you are telling. You are not considering the SLO, SLAs, you are not taking consideration about the contract. You are not thinking about anything about that. And even, for example, these observability pieces are not there. So, but for example, the profiles that you are looking, for example, when you're looking for a person, is it still the same DevOps or is now a different profile? What kind of jobs you are looking there? Because then these people who is going to work with you, I have to imagine that should be, for sure that is the same people, but the specialization of this person should be different, no?
Not really. I would say no. I would look for the same profiles, but before I didn't know what I'm looking. So the level of awareness has grown. At the end of the day, the qualities that you're looking at not that much technical. What you're looking for profiles which are capable to grow themselves. They have to be curious. They have to obviously be very talented technically and be able to have let's say, grow the experience very fast in different areas, because technology is moving so fast. You have to always stay sharp with the technology stack that you're using. So now we have a very interesting spider web where we look at our platform engineering setup. So basically what we did, and this is maybe interesting for our audience, like we have a reverse Conway philosophy. Now, basically you look at your technology stack, you basically structure it on different layers, and then every single layer reflects a domain that your team, a small team, will have to operate on. So what we did, we formed our DevOps team around these technology stacks. So we created what we call distributed DevOps, DDOs. And then we have certain members of the team owning that for a limited time. That's very important. So not owning forever, because the goal is always to have holistic view. A great DevOps, it's a DevOps, or a great platform engineer, it's someone that has the holistical view over the whole platform. But the cognitive load for someone joining a team that already has a platform engineering, it's huge. There's no way you can grow that immediately. And there is really impossible to find that profile on the market. So what you have to do is you look for the qualities that your platform engineering has. Then you need to look at some personal qualities like focus, growth, and then impact, right? And then once you have that profile, then you're going to make sure that that person can contribute in the first day to at least one DDO. So has a productive impact immediately on the team, and then has the capability to grow in the other DDOs with time. So rotation is important. And let's say in 2 years or so, you're going to have someone that is senior enough to have the holistic perspective to build and grow and evolve the platform engineering.
Does it sound like, don't get me wrong, but doesn't sound like what's happening with this is infrastructure engineers are basically locking themselves into their own ecosystem in some way, and making so that the company starts serving their needs And basically what's happening is we are building an environment for us for compatible work for so that we could deliver what the company wants from us. I don't know if it's even a good way to describe this. Kirill, probably if you share your own definition of platform engineering and prove that I'm wrong. Or not wrong.
I like the term platform engineering in general because the term DevOps just became so, it has so many meanings. We have an article on the website about what DevOps is. And it's a culture, it's a profession, there are many aspects in it. And when it started, DevOps was, on one side, it's about developers and operations working together. On the other side, it was about, because the Puppet and Chef appeared, so let's use configuration management. And then people who learned these tools were DevOps engineers. And I think the term platform engineering gives a bit better idea of what to expect from the person, because as the person who for sure knows software engineering, but focuses his efforts around building the platform for other teams, which is different from site reliability engineer, because these people, they focus on the site reliability. They're not necessarily thinking about how to offer the platform to outside teams. And for sure, there is this moment that, is it really in DevOps spirit when there is again, a dedicated team only building platform, and then communication with other teams is happening over this platform, or depends how platform looks like. But I think it's a necessity for bigger environments. I'm not sure how platform engineering is applicable to smaller companies. Like if you have, a company of 50 people with 2 applications, then does it make sense for the company to look for platform engineers, or do they still look for a DevOps engineer? But for the companies like Allianz and Allianz Direct, with many microservices, it just makes sense to consolidate all the knowledge around building this kind of cloud-based platform and think about the golden path and use cases for other teams, instead of doing, let's say, the cross-functional teams with one DevOps engineer per team. I've been in such setups, and the downside is that, when you have cross-functional team with dedicated DevOps person in each team, you cannot have proper standardization and the golden path. Every team is doing something differently, which is good for team autonomy, but long-term, you lose a lot of productivity because you don't centralize all of these use cases somewhere like a platform.
Maybe I wanna comment on that, because it's a very good point. No, it's the size of the organization. It's extremely important. Obviously, you need a certain critical mass in order to say I have my internal platform engineering. Right? I would say you need at least 6 senior DevOps engineers in order to build anything like that and then operate it. So if you have that luxury of investing, or that vision of investing in internal platform engineering, then I would say it's totally worth it, because you can really understand your organization in ways that no one can do, and then you can bring all that experience, because again, it's a matter of the stakeholders' experience. So you can bring all the stakeholders' voices and experience in that platform engineering, and you start serving all. It's very important to distinguish between serving just the developers and serving the whole organization. And then, of course, if you are a smaller company and you can't afford that investment of that operation cost, I still believe it's important to have someone with platform engineering in its title, but also in his knowledge, to still be collecting the experience feedback from the rest of the stakeholders, and make sure that whatever platform they're going to buy or operate reflects the expectation from his colleagues, from the stakeholders.
Okay. I feel like I'm getting back in time a little bit, because as Kirill mentioned, when there was a period when we were writing articles on what DevOps is, who is DevOps engineer, what they do and what they do not. And there was a lot of miscommunications on this regard, because people who are not DevOps engineers called them DevOps, and it was a lot of misunderstanding. And I feel like the same happening today with platform engineering. And is it possible to define what should be included in platform engineering, and what you should start doing to say that in your company there is platform engineering, and what should not be included in it in any way, like do not throw everything inside of it.
It's a tough one. I can try to bring some ideas here. So first of all, you need to have a platform in place. What that means, I mean, there are lots of definitions, but basically there is a certain illusion that to do cloud, you just have to choose one hyperscaler. You go there and you put some services together, and then you have a list of services or a list of tools. And that's the DevOps stack. That's the difference between a DevOps stack and a platform engineering. A DevOps stack is like you just list the tools and say, look, this is what we do on DevOps. If you go a little bit beyond that and you make sure that all those tools are really evaluated individually against a large ecosystem, so you just don't go for the tool just because you have it on a hyperscaler. Every single tool has to solve a problem. And then there are a lot of tools on the market that can solve the same problem. Ideally, you evaluate a few of those, and then you choose the best. And the best means probably it's one that really integrates with the rest of the stack. No, so this coupling with the rest of the selection that you make has to feel like a whole. It shouldn't be like individual tooling or items that solve separate concerns or problems. It should be something unified that solves like the whole organization problems in building, releasing, operating, and evolving the software. It has to feel like the same experience everywhere. So if one business is talking about an SLA, that SLA has to be, for example, reflected in an SLO on a PO level, and then in an SLI, so an indicator on a engineer level. The language has to be the same, the experience has to be the same, and everything will move much faster. Another argument from the perspective of a DevOps is basically when a DevOps is really concerned about the experience that all the stakeholders have in using that platform, and not concerned about him just doing his job in delivering one tool. That's also the cultural shift that needs to happen on the DevOps level to become a platform engineer. One good example would be maybe the identity access management. Now, every organization has something like that. So if you are really concerned about just, let's say you take one API management tool and you just deploy it with or without code, and then you make sure that it's running, right? That's the old thinking of that's my job as a DevOps, I just deliver you the tool, versus you say, I take ownership of the whole IAM tool and I make sure that the way identity is being consumed and being reflecting and being observed and being secured, that's my job. And that's something I'm going to be part of the conversation. Even maybe I'm not the person that I'm going to lead the whole strategy on the IAM level, but I need to be part of that conversation because I'm really concerned about the whole experience.
Do you think your project infrastructure is well set and maintained? We know for sure there is always room for improvement. If you are uncertain where to begin, let's first do an audit of what you already have. We will review your setup from every angle: performance, cost, security, high availability, and automation, and provide you with a detailed roadmap of which direction your infrastructure should go, generate concrete tasks for you to implement, or even take on your infra entirely, if you let us, of course.
So then when we're talking here, let's see, imagine an organization with different verticals. And this organization, every vertical is different departments, a company like Allianz that, different even concepts. What is the work to be able that in the same infrastructure, you're able to make everyone to follow the rules, because every vertical can do something completely different. Then is really, really difficult to make this movement in this vertical, because I get the point, and I think is the ideal scenario, but it's complicated, no? Because even we are giving that to humans, and every human is different.
Well, depends on the scale. Most likely in if you look at the whole Allianz or another huge company, Boeing or whatever, then basically you're going to have multiple platforms. But you're going to have platform engineering. And probably they're going to look like 60% of the things they're doing, they're going to be the same. And 40% will be still different. And probably in time, they will converge towards something much more similar, probably 80, 20, 90, 10 in the future. No? So that's probably an evolution that still need to happen. Right now we have, let's say, micro platform engineering platforms, and soon probably we'll have something much bigger than this.
And where is here connected the federated? How is that combined here in all these components?
On the platform level. So imagine this micro platform engineering that I was mentioning. So basically, you can't imagine a small organization. So even this small organization in terms of a huge enterprise, we are talking about 1,500 people or so that needs to have a saying in how the software is being released and operated. So whenever you have that, probably you're going to end up with, 30, 40 squads now organized in different tribes. And every single squad is responsible for the work that they do. And this work has to have quality. And that quality is not just the fact that your code is building, compiling, and is running and executing successfully the JUnit testing. This quality is around operational concerns. So your code needs to behave in a certain way and your customers have to be happy with that. It has to be compliant with whatever the organization is requiring. It has to be secured. You cannot accept to have vulnerability management and then issues and then to really be exposed on the market and really blow up your reputation, for example, on the market. So all those concerns have to be basically really addressed on the squad level. And this is where a federated DevOps, which, by the way, that federated DevOps, it's nothing else but an engineer that is sensitive to these qualities and is growing the expertise. And with the expertise comes more responsibility because he's going to get more rights. You have to be ready as a platform engineering team, core team, to give more rights and to really empower this role to become much more effective, which means maybe that he's going to write its own CI/CD flavor. So he's going to have a certain pipeline, which is really dedicated for the squad's needs. He's going to probably have something to say about how the platform is evolving. He's going to be asked about all the changes that will be done. He's going to read the architecture decision records, and he's going to have a saying because he knows what he's saying. So he's actually the one steering the platform engineering. You are collecting the feedback from so many other units, and this ultimately allows you to really reflect the voice of your customers in how you evolve the whole platform engineering. So it's not, you mentioned clearly that is how do you enforce the standards to the whole organization? Well, you don't enforce it because as long as you have these voices bringing the message back to where you want to drive it, basically you just co-own it and you construct it together, you evolve it together.
Yeah, the problem with enforcing is what I said, like Pablo also saw the bigger companies, is this attempt to build a platform that basically standardizes absolutely everything, which then results in a platform which is impossible to use. Because we saw examples where to create a new service, it has like 2 to 3 months process where you cannot modify anything. You basically, individual team cannot really innovate on how they run applications. And it's hard to contact this platform team simply because of how big organization is. So it's probably specific for companies of like really huge size, for like thousands of people or in like hundreds of different application teams.
I see the problem, and I'm sure a lot of platform engineering teams will end up with this situation. But that happened also in the past with DevOps. A lot of failures happened because simply you make mistakes. You either overstandardize or you grant too much freedom, and then you cannot operate what you have. You cannot contain all the elements that have been added in the whole technology landscape. So I truly believe that there are millions of ways to fail and only few ways to be successful. So again, it's a matter of the quality of the platform engineers that you have to grow your environment, and also, of course, the maturity and education of the management, because they have to have a certain freedom, but that freedom should not be converted in tyranny at the end of the day, no?
But one question: at the end, if this federated model is like a way to have different verticals, no, working, let's say, with a kind of independence, no, to be able to not to do what you want, but at least, because it's a different organization unit, many times you have to do something different to what the other federation unit needs to do, the other organization needs to do. Do you have, or is there any kind of organization on top who is something like a mastering what are the rules in every one of those verticals, or how is this working? Because at the end, everyone can generate different rules, no?
No. The rules. So it's just to make sure we are on the same line. We're talking now about micro enterprise, 1,500 employees, let's call it. And then you have different tribes and different squads. And in the squads, you're going to have the role of federated DevOps. And these federated DevOps will always be in contact with the core platform engineering. So the core platform engineering is the ex-DevOps team that evolves towards platform engineering. They have a certain platform in place, a certain set of tools and certain rules and standards and release processes in place and observability. And these guys suddenly realize that they are concerned about the quality of what they are delivering, which means they have to interview the customers that they are serving. And they also need to make sure that the squads themselves, they do two things. First of all, they know how to maximize the use of the platform that they build. And so that comes with education and with empowerment. And second, the feedback of all these federated DevOps is being reflected back in the platform, the way they evolve it.
Mm-hmm. I have that feeling, like the thing that you are discussing today, they are not new. And while you were discussing, I have imagined industries where this was implemented like long ago. And this kind of reminded me of a meme, like Zoomers inventing things. And the one industry where this already existing for a longer period is factories. For example, car manufacturing, where they have assembly lines, machines, smeltering or whatever, and all of this, all the company, all the infrastructure is built around the final point, like where the cars actually assembled, right? And this is where like this verticality or rule enforcement comes in play, because if you do not standardize everything, you will fail at some point, and you will your car will break at some point. And this is similar to the same comes to they even have different models of car, like different Toyotas, different Teslas, but they have parts and standards that are universal across the board, across the company. And it is difficult for them to even create a new kind of something. Like you even have to create in order to create a new shape of hood or a husk, how do they call it? A new shape. You have to reimagine the whole process, because you need new presses, new smelting techniques, new paints even. And it is a difficult and painful process for them. That is why we see new models so rarely. And this is where essentially software development came to. So we have to build a factory first in order to be able to build software inside of this factory in an efficient way. And when we're talking about federated DevOps, but basically are talking about a factory director who is running this factory, and he is communicating with other company stakeholders, and he's ordering machines, and he's enforcing the rules that which tools we are using, which tools we don't use if we want to build the product of the quality that we are aiming for. Is it so? Like, is it the correct?
I think the difference is because in case of the factory for cars, like once you have a factory, you can more or less build a fixed number of cars, right? And the job of platform team is to offer something where many different teams can build many different products. So maybe it's a web application, maybe it's like data analytics platform, and so on. So it's not like in terms of if in the car manufacturer analogy, currently these EV cars, they have actual platforms. Like Volkswagen has this MEB platform, and then all of the new electric cars of Volkswagen are built on top of this platform, and they look different. They're like SUVs, and they're like the coupe, and they're the big ones, but they're all based on the same platform. So then someone first thought about this MEB platform, which then allows other teams in Volkswagen to engineer many different variations of the cars.
Maybe what I would add here is that hardware is extremely hard. That's why hardware. No, we don't have hardware here in platform engineering. What is the analogy? What is pointing out correctly? It's the complexity. So whenever you have complexity, you have to standardize and you have to be very efficient with what you do. Regarding how rigid this construction is, I would completely disagree. I'm looking back at my team, and basically in the last 1 year, we went to at least 2 different major re-architecture, mainly because you have different challenges. When you're a 300-person company, you have different challenges. When you go to 600, you have different challenges. When you diversify the business, you need to go to multi-tenancy, and you have not just internal stakeholders, you have external stakeholders. So it's a continuous destruction and reconstruction that needs to happen. And this is why it's good that platform engineering is all about code, because code can easily be redesigned and tested. So that's always a positive thing. So yeah. That would be the major difference I see.
Could you comment on what, because I know companies for which re-architecturing, especially on platform level, would take, many years. Do you see any kind of particular properties of your environment or how you built it that allows to easily change and re-architect things and not be stuck for like 12 months project to just change whatever major version of one SDK?
I would say this has to do with what I preach for a while, and I call innovation sovereignty. That's beyond anything technical. It's the quality of the people that are part of the platform engineering. So if you really own your stack, and this is a great quality of the internal platform engineering platforms, if you own the code and the knowledge and the expertise, then we're redesigning something. It's natural, I would say. It's absolutely natural because everything around you changes. You have to change with that. Otherwise, you're going to end up with something obsolete, and then you're going to have a very poor platform engineering system. Or in general, you're going to have a poor architecture and a huge technical debt around what you operate. So change is inevitable. And then you have to be ready to change often. And sometimes you have to force that change. We did that a few times, and every single time we destroy something, like we took one cluster and we said, we're not happy with how this cluster is being constructed. It doesn't give us the flexibility, So we said, okay, let's destroy it and let's rebuild it from scratch and let's see what's going on. Or we had another chance. We had another tenant that was added. And then we said, we didn't just say, take the easy job and just replicate what you have without any changes. What we said was like, let's take this opportunity to rebuild it from scratch. Imagine we are building a new platform from scratch. Think about the last months, years that you operated this, and change the things that you think will improve your life and the life of your stakeholders. So every single time we have a chance to challenge ourselves, we do that. And this gives you this flexibility to change overnight, if needed, of course.
But from the point of view of stakeholders, like when you are talking about ever-changing platform engineering, and by the way, can you even call it a platform? because it's so flexible and it's always changes and evolves. It's not something firm. Like it's not a platform. It's something moving. Something changes. And from the point of view of the stakeholders who gives you money for this evolution, for these changes, isn't it something risky or scary? Why? Just explain to me. Like I'm as a stockholder, why instead of doing your work, you're building something else rather than building a tool? At what point platform engineering becomes a development of a product? Because as you describe it, it's something you cannot separate one from another. As how it looks now, but from the perspective of a stakeholder, why you should call it like a separate entity, like a platform or a platform engineering? Why not call it a building a product? What's the difference?
That's a very tough and good question. I better have a good answer, otherwise my boss will kill me. So the platform itself, again, it's not the tools that you have. It's the standard, the processes, and the expertise that you have. And when I'm saying you rebuild something, you don't rebuild it for the sake of rebuilding it or for the technical curiosity. Normally, you rebuild it to solve some big problems. You either have a poor identity flow, for example, or you have a security posture that you're not happy with, or simply your platform is too costly because you use, for example, the wrong instance, or you don't have the right nodes in place. Mm-hmm. So, and you take the opportunity to solve those big problems. Every single time we did a re-architecture, we actually saved a lot of money from the whole organization because basically they were able to release software faster, more reliable. Security was always very, very well solved. Mm-hmm. And then compliance was every single time we had an audit, they were surprised to see that we had already all the answers being answered before they had the questions for us. So again, don't do re-architecture for the sake of having a beautiful platform, but do it with your customers, with your stakeholders in mind. Think what problems they have and where you can improve the whole experience they have. That's the trigger for this. And then you have a very simple conversation with your bosses because they get it. I always say, lately when I'm looking at FinOps, I'm saying that the best FinOps focus that a platform engineering can have, it's architecture. If you have the right architecture in place, you're going to save millions for the whole organization. So if you want to start somewhere with FinOps, challenge your architecture and you're going to have huge savings.
Mm-hmm. I want to get back to my factory analogy because I think it works here too. From the point of explaining to the stakeholders why do we need that. They could tell us, we want to build Tesla. Let's just purchase some factories from Ford and build Tesla there. And then you say, I'm sorry, but you cannot build Tesla on Ford factory. If you use Ford factory, you will build Ford. You cannot build anything else there. And for that, and if we are building a new product, we need to build a new platform for that. Something similar. And I remember, even when getting back to Tesla, they built a number of factories before or it was for SpaceX. I don't remember. So they had a number of attempts before they found a correct way to produce those in a number they needed for them. So it's something difficult even on the established industry when it comes to factory. And I cannot imagine how difficult for you guys is when we are basically working with something so new in the area and something, and this basically explains why we have so many tools on the market, and why you cannot use the tools that were developed by other people, other companies, and you always have to find better tools or even create your own from scratch because how different the products that we are building in software and because how complex they are today, this basically explains why we need this platform to build those complex tools.
I always saw the huge ecosystem of tools and vendors at least initially, as a curse, as a complexity. Now, nowadays, I changed my mind. I see it as a bless, because it allows you so easy to evolve. Now, the tools, the vendors, they challenge themselves, they evolve faster than they would do independently. You always have to catch up with the others. You always have to bring something new. So this competition is extremely helpful. And again, one magic rule for having a good platform is to be really agnostic to the tool that you're using. Mm-hmm. You should be able to just take one tool out, put another tool out. And you always have to be, you have to be very careful with your identity, because I mentioned this innovation sovereignty. It's good to own your stack and to know what to do, but you cannot do everything. And some concerns are extremely expensive. So why would you do that with such a small team? In some cases, you might decide, I want to scale up the team with one team because this is a core knowledge that I want to retain and I want to grow. But in some cases, you say, I'm wasting my time on, I don't know, you name it, metrics, logging. I don't want to, or Kubernetes, it's a very good example. I don't want to run my own Kubernetes. I don't want to have a control plane that I'm worried about. Instead, why don't I take it as a service? So I'm saving here 1.5 FTE, maybe 2 FTEs. It's going to be hardened by default. And those persons really can focus on the core value that your stakeholders have and expect from you. They don't expect you to have a very strong Kubernetes. They don't care about that, but they care about having strong SLAs, not having incidents, react fast to incidents, release software fast, onboard people fast. So these are the qualities that you need to identify in your organization needs, and then focus on those, deliver on those. Everything else that doesn't really fit there can be either externalized to a vendor or buy it as a service.
And you mean platform as a service is a thing today?
It depends on your size. I'm a big fan of building your internal platform engineering. But if you do go for another, again, my case here, it's around change. Business changes faster than ever. Nowadays, you do everything and you just don't do it internally. You have a huge amount of partnerships which might be available to you. So every single month, every single semester, you get a lot of changes out of nowhere. So if you can afford, let's say, evolving with the speed of the platform that you're buying, because if you buy a platform, that platform has a lot of clients. It's going to evolve with a certain speed. If you don't have bigger stress on your business needs, that might be fine. But if your business is very active, and it's very creative, and it's changing your requirements, your specifications very often, you have to be able to change as often as they do. And I couldn't find any better setup than having your own internal platform engineering in place.
This is true for medium-sized or for larger companies. But what are the alternatives for the smaller teams? Just use the tools that are already on the market.
I think the confusion around platform engineering that I see is that lots of people think that platform engineering necessarily means building internal platform as a service, like to have some kind of internal Heroku or whatever is currently like a modern PaaS. And that's what also like Pablo and I saw in the Kubernetes community days in July, that lots of discussions related to platform engineering are really about, let's use Kubernetes and then drop on top another 20 tools, which makes no sense for smaller teams, right? Especially like if you have a couple of applications. Platform engineering also needs to be not scaled down, but when you're a small company that exists for 1-2 years and you treat platform as a product, then this product also needs to have some kind of MVP and the first iterations that should probably eventually evolve into platform as a service used internally. But these first iterations could be as simple as offering your developers a CI/CD tool, or offering them a straightforward, like a golden path to provision repositories and to deploy the apps without Kubernetes. And then in a couple of years, when the company grows, there is a demand for actually like deploying lots of microservices and for have a more like sophisticated observability. Then you introduce these features. So I like what you say, Sergio, about it. It's not about technology, it's about processes, because that's where I think many smaller and mid-sized companies can find what platform engineering means for them. And it should not always mean that we need to now deploy OpenShift or Kubernetes and drop many, many things on top to do basic things.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, guys. I learned a lot of things. I feel like for us, it changes a little bit because now, like when I'm looking back at what we are doing, and we call ourselves a default DevOps consultancy. Like now, I like the idea of platform engineering consultancy. And there is a lot to think about, and I wonder what our listeners have to say about it. We're definitely not going to let the idea go, and I have many more questions about platform engineering. And I would like to thank you, Sergiu, for answering the questions that we had today. It was very useful. And for those who wants to know more about Sergiu and to learn more things from him, can you please give us something where they can find you, where they should subscribe to you, and where they can see you and listen to you?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it was an absolute pleasure to engage with you guys. Always such a pleasure to hear your thoughts and challenge ourselves in any technical aspects that we might have. It was really a pleasure to be here. I'm trying to be as active as I can. I believe I have a lot of wisdom, maybe productive wisdom to share. You can find me definitely with CNCF, where I'm holding a position of technical advisory board. So for you end users, I would be really interested to find out what challenges you have and just engage with me in any conversation. We'll be doing that anyhow during KubeCon and all the other events. And I'm also trying to be a little bit active on LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn, where I'm also sharing some thoughts that I'm writing on Medium, for example. I'm trying to keep up with the digital transformation through DevOps and share my stories from the past, but also dive a little bit deeper in the question we had today. Now we a little bit maybe with more details what the platform engineering is, how to get to a platform engineering, possible topologies around it. So I'm going to be writing a little bit more in the future. So just follow me on LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I will make sure to have all the links in the description down below. And don't forget to give us likes, to give us subscribes. And once again, I want to remind you that the best way to not to miss anything that we produce, that we create, our content, articles, videos, is to be subscribed to our bi-weekly newsletter, mkdev Dispatch. Go there right now, give us a sub, and we will hear you in 2 weeks on another episode of DevOps Accent. Thank you guys for joining me, and bye-bye.
Pablo Keyan, it's a pleasure.
The cloud tech industry is evolving so fast. Do you keep up with it by improving your skills or upskilling your team? At mkdev, we offer a variety of workshops for just that, from the basics to expert knowledge. Before delivering our workshops and training sessions, we carry out a detailed assessment of each participant. To make sure the workshop is helpful for you and your team, we will add more content to it or throw out what you already know. Or we create a custom workshop specifically for the needs of your team and the specifics of your project.